Anybody know there were 40 varieties of cherries?
That was the beginning of a guided tour at Andy's Orchard in Morgan Hill, California. Andy's Orchard is one of the last orchards in Silicon Valley. During the harvest season, the orchard offers a few guided tours with fruit picking and fruit tasting.
There are two cherries which you've seen or will see on the tasting today. One's called a Van, and the other one is the Bing. And when the Van and the Bing were crossed, two black cherries, what do you think they came up with? The cherry we're picking off this tree, the Rainier. So two black cherries got a Rainier. Somewhere in Bing's parentage is Royal Anne, which is a blonde cherry. And it came out in the Rainier and is now trying to outdo the Bing. So one day we took to a tasting those three cherries, and that was our story for the tasting. Was if you cross this black cherry with this black cherry, you get this blonde cherry. Black Republican. The green ring, yes. It actually has a political history too. Uh-oh. This was named by an ardent abolitionist who lived up in Oregon in the late 1800s, and he actually did it as a dig.
Who was he?
Seth Llewellyn was his name.
Llewellyn.
He also developed the Bing, and he named that after one of his Chinese laborers, farm workers up there.
After cherry picking, it's time to taste different varieties of cherries. After tasting all the fresh cherries, each visitor gets a chocolate-coated Bing cherry as a treat. Besides cherries, there are other stone fruits for tasting and picking.
And let me tell you, the gold dust is the old heirloom style, shape, color, size. You know, it's got some color but mild blush. That's where the Brittany Lane is sort of the big modern, much harder, much easier to pack out, and that's what people have come to expect. Generally speaking, this is not the favorite peach down here, but we've got one lady who thinks it's the absolute best. She wants 2 of these in her yard. So she's going to get the rootstock planted soon, so she can get 2 grafted next year. The group that I'm with, the California Rare Fruit Growers, teaches people how to graft their own fruit trees. So if you've got a peach tree, you don't have to harvest a whole tree in 7 days, which is normally what happens when peaches are ripe. The whole tree is ripe in a week, 10 days at the most. So what we want you to do is we want you to graft your fruit tree, put 5 different varieties on it, gold dust that ripens in June, out to fair time, which ripens in September. And that way you've got 1 tree, 5 peaches, 2.5 months worth of picking on it. Yay, that's what we like.
An operation of around 50 patched-together acres, Andy's orchard belongs to the Mariani family. Mr. Andy Mariani inherited the orchard from his parents.
My parents came from Europe, and I'm first generation. So my father came over from what's present-day Croatia. It used to be part of Italy, because we have this Italian name, Mariani, and he came over in 1931, and that was the height of the Depression. So he was able to get work just as a farm laborer, working for my uncle, who had come previously. And then that wasn't working out too well because it was like 25 cents an hour, and he was ready to go back to Europe. But then he convinced my uncle that my dad would be better off going fishing, commercial fishing. So during the Depression, the fishermen shared in the proceeds of the catch rather than just getting a small wage. So within a couple of years, he was able to bring over his wife and family. He came by himself, and he had 2 children and a wife. Stayed back, and so he was able to bring them over in 2 years, and also buy his first apricot orchard in Cupertino. It was 5 acres, and we stayed in Cupertino for quite a while until actually 1957. We had a farm that would right now be across the street from the headquarters of Apple Computer on Dianza Boulevard. And there is a Mariani Avenue. I don't know if you've seen that before, right there near the campus of the original campus of Apple Computer, and that's named after my uncle. So we have some roots in the Cupertino area. We bought this place in 1957 because it was everything was being developed there very quickly. So we decided to sell there and move here to Morgan Hill, where we found this place. Moved here in 1958, and we've been here ever since. So we've been here quite a few years. Almost 60 years, and initially we had apricots and prunes. Apricots and prunes were major crops because they lended themselves to drying, and at that time drying was a good way to preserve fruit for later sale. Even at that time in the 50s, refrigeration and the transportation system was not well developed, so that you can ship fresh fruit to the East Coast or to other areas. So the main way to produce a lot of fruit was to dry it and then sell it later when it's not fresh and perishable. So we've been here, like I said, for a long time, and later on we added some peaches and nectarines and plums, and we even grow some persimmons. Then I got the bright idea of going into more specialty varieties, not necessarily specialty crops, but specialty varieties where we have these old heirloom fruits that nobody else wants to grow or can grow. And the climate of Santa Clara Valley is ideal for most stone fruits. And so my focus has always been on a lot of different varieties, and we select them, the only very best tasting. I mean, there's old varieties that don't taste so good, but we try to select the very best of both the new ones and the old ones, and we grow it in the right climate. And the other thing that we do is we tree ripen them, so you get the full flavor. The flavor and the sugar content of the fruit rises tremendously in the last few days that it's on the tree. So if you wait that long and are patient, you're rewarded with really excellent tasting fruit, and also more nutritious. So that's kind of our focus: many varieties and being tree ripened. And we sell all over. We sell to some places in the Bay Area. We sell to restaurants like Baume in Palo Alto and Manresa and Los Gatos. We sell to Sagonas, who are it's a specialty fruit stand. They're at Stanford Shopping Center in Redwood City. We sell to Olson's in Sunnyvale, and we also go down to the Santa Monica Farmers Market, where we enjoy a tremendous following. some of the stars come there, like Wolfgang Puck, famous chef. He comes to our stall and buys fruit from us. Most of our van load, we'll take down maybe 300 cartons, and maybe 80% of it's already pre-sold to these food service people, and then we get onto tables later and just sell out because we're very popular there. So we're enjoying that kind of a following, and it's been a lot of fun.
Even so, Mr. Mariani is concerned about the future of Andy's Orchard.
Morgan Hill is growing by leaps and bounds. We're getting surrounded by development. It's of concern to us from two standpoints, and that is we don't know what's going to happen here. We don't know whether they're going to try and just make us a park or develop or not develop. And if the development continues around us, basically farming and development are just inherently incompatible, ultimately. So when the developments surround us, then we're going to have a problem continuing to farm, and that's of concern to us. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be, I'm 71 years old. I like what I'm doing. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to stay here.
But what makes farming and housing development so incompatible?
Morgan Hill has ordinances that try to limit development, but we're one of the last large parcels that's within the influence of the city of Morgan Hill. So others may have their eye on this for other purposes. I don't know. They'd like us to continue farming, but again, it's getting much more difficult to farm. So on the one hand, I'd like to stay here as long as I can. And on the other hand, it's more challenging. When, for example, they have a buffer on the north side. It's a 150-foot buffer. They can't build there, and so that's kind of nice. On the other hand, the rooftops are right next door anyway, and they've made a path in that kind of dead space, and they even put a playground there. So that kind of negates the whole idea of having a buffer. And we have dust, we have noise, we have spray drift, we have all kinds of things that agriculture kind of takes for granted, when you're in an agricultural area. But in an urbanized setting, it's much more offensive to the people that live here. How to resolve that, I don't know. We try to spray on the weekends, or at night. On the weekends, school isn't in session. We have a school right next door. So what we try to do is spray on the weekends. Well, on the weekends, the joggers and the bicyclists come out. So when do we spray? And the spraying is not usually too toxic. I mean, we follow integrated pest management and a lot of organic sprays. One time, a neighbor said, "Well, the spray you spray smells funny. I can smell it." Well, it turned out it was a nutrient spray that's made from seaweed, and it smelled like the ocean. So there's a lot of things that we're doing here, and it's all laid out. We have an open book. We have to register and report to the county, and that goes to the state. It's all public information what we do, but still there's a concern. There's a concern if people are walking to school from the development and they go around our place. The kids, they'll cut through the orchard. They're not supposed to, but they do, and we may have just sprayed it an hour before. So again, my belief is that development and farming are inherently incompatible. If you have enough buffers and like a lot of farming areas that are set aside, you can do that. But once one parcel gets surrounded by development, it's far more difficult to continue farming. So I'm presenting a question. I'm not suggesting any solutions because I don't know what the solution is.
The solution, however, is something the local government and community must come up with to keep Andy's Orchard thriving as a significant historical site as well as a magnificent fruit paradise for today's visitors and future generations.